Okay, so first movement, and this is possibly the most important movement when it comes to doing, especially if you want to do kettlebell swings. This is like the most important movement, and it's going to be the hip hinge. So what is a hip hinge? So think of it's in essence a deadlift, but in order for you to perform a deadlift well, you have to be able to hinge at the hips. So what does that mean? So the best way for me to demonstrate that is for me to stand at a side profile, for that way you can kind of see the angles. And just so you know, like in any exercise you do, it's always about your angles. If you went to a gym right now and you just start to watch everybody and pay attention and look, without anybody, even if this is like your first time in a gym, you'd be able to tell just by looking at people who seems like they have everything under control and who seems like, ooh, you know, they probably need some help. And it's an unconscious thing in the sense that your body is geared towards understanding angles. So when you see angles perform, or when you see somebody contort their body into angles that just look perfect, that's how you know that this person has the movement and their form is under control and they know what they're doing. Versus somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, it's typically the angles, because that's all our body is. It's a series of joints held together by muscles and connective tissue. And their job is to ensure that we are always optimizing the angle of the joint so that one, we can produce the most amount of force, or we can absorb and maintain a position without causing undue stress on different parts of the body. So when you see people who get hurt, they get hurt because not even like somebody hit them or anything like that, but they get hurt just by, oh, I was picking this up or I was doing this. It's because your angles were off. So I'm going to demonstrate to you what a hip hinge looks like, right? So before I even use the kettlebell, I'm just going to go into a hip hinge movement. So what I would like you to do is for you to stand right here, feet shoulder width apart, right? And I just want you to place your thumbs together right here. So let me face you for right now. Place your thumbs together for right here, and place them right here on your lap. And all you're going to do, driving your hips back, is you're going to reach down as far as you can to where you're feeling a stretch in those hamstrings. And don't worry, I'm going to turn to the side so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And then come right back up and stand up tall, right? So we're going to turn to the side, thumbs together, and we're going to drive the hips backwards. And as we're driving the hips backwards, your torso, your chest is naturally going to collapse. And what you're noticing, you should be seeing is, or feeling, is a stretch all the way back up here, right? For some of you, depending on where you are, you're going to feel more of a stretch in the hamstrings. But ultimately, your posterior chain, the more you master the movement, you feel the stretch from your glutes all the way down to your calves. And to some extent, you should even feel the erector muscles of your back. For a lot of you guys who this movement is unfamiliar, you're going to feel a lot of strain in your lower back. So again, let's get in that position again, and let's do 10 repetitions just to kind of familiarize ourselves with it. So try your best not to round your back. Just stand up tall, keeping your spine as straight as you can, and then drive the hips backwards and up. And when you come up, stand tall. You don't have to overly squeeze your butt. Just stand tall, and then push the hips back again and up. Good. And come up forward. And make sure you're not holding your breath while you're performing this movement. Just breathe as you move, right? I'm not going to tell you when to inhale or exhale. I'm going to allow you to just let it come naturally. But just know that you should be breathing while you're performing this movement. Okay. I kind of lost count, but let's do 3 more. Good. Excellent. Good. And one more time from the front. Just do 5 reps, because what I want you to see is I want you to see how in line everything should be. So as you go down, you want the knees to be directly over the ankles, and then you don't want your hips shifting from side to side. Depending again on your natural position, it might be a little bit challenging. So thumbs touching, and we're just going to do the exact same thing we were doing, but now driving back and up. Good. One more. Okay. So this is a hinge. Okay. This is you hinging at the hips. So now we're going to do it. We're going to introduce the weight to it. Before we get started, I want you to understand something. So for any of you guys who are unfamiliar with what the core is, I'm going to introduce to you the concept of the core as I see it. The core represents your pelvis, the hip bone, and your spine. When you can keep those two in alignment, because your spine just balances right on top of the core, and then every muscle that connects them to each other, those are your core muscles, because your job is to maintain that balance in them. Your spine is like a snake, and your hips is conducting the snake, right? For those of you guys, I think it was a movie I used to watch, a kung fu movie I used to watch called Snake in the Monkey Shadow. It was always like this. That's literally what your hips are doing. This is your hip. This is your spine on top of it. If you can keep them stable, in order to keep them stable, it's going to require all the muscles attached. So it's not just your abdominal muscles. You have muscles of the spine. You got the erector muscles right here. You got individual muscles, the multifidi, that are responsible for holding the vertebrae together, because your spine naturally wants to bend and twist and rotate. And that's a beautiful thing, you know, but it's ultimately core strength is determined by your control of everything. So again, this is your hip. This is your spine. If it's too much like this, that means the muscles on this side are too tight, and then the muscles on this side are too stretched out and loose. So it's about gaining balance. So while we're performing this movement, it's about balancing your spine over your hips. That's how you just think about that, and naturally the abdominal muscles will engage the way they're supposed to. I'm not going to give you those cues to where it's like suck it in, hold it in, blah blah blah, pull your belly button. Just try and elongate your spine, right? So don't slouch, elongate your spine. All right. So I'm going to demonstrate the hip hinge again. This time I have the weight in between my feet. Okay. We don't want it out there, because what happens is when we reach for it, we're going to put stress on that lower back. Okay. We don't want that. So let's pull the kettlebell here. So it's going to be in between our feet. Now, the benefit of that is, one, when you're reaching down for it, it's going to require you to have to push the hips out of the way so your hands can get there, right? So we're going to do 10 repetitions. And remember, keeping that spine under control, and it's like you're tipping the hips forward. Think of the hips like a bucket, and it's pouring water while also keeping that spine, right? So ready? We're going to reach down towards that kettlebell. And once we get a good grip, and up. All right. And then we're going to place it right back down and up. And again, when you come up, you know, you don't have to squeeze the butt so much. You don't have to do that. Just stand up straight, stand up tall, keep the spine stable, and then drive back and up. Drive the hips back and up. And just repeat that for as many times as you have determined you're going to be doing the movement for. So we're going to let's do 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And also another thing, when you're performing these movements, always look forward. Keep your head straight ahead. And then as you go down, you look at the kettlebell. And then when you come up, look forward. And the reason for that is, again, your skull is part of the spine, right? So if you're looking down, then that means the spine is going to be bent. You're putting a lot of stress on the muscles of the back. So for postural purposes, for your posture, keep it upright and just look straight up. Always look straight up and always look straight ahead, right? So again, this is your hip hinge, right? Hinging over to pick something up and coming straight up. So this is the same movement if you were at home trying to pick up a box or you wanted to move the couch. It's the same thing. Understanding, in essence, how to orient your hips, maintain engagement in your spine, and that helps to make sure that the muscles are working and you're not putting undue stress on the joints, right? But anyway, so that was the hip hinge, and next we're gonna go into the squat.